Okay, we will start our presentation. Whoever joins later is fine. And today we have introduction to the Vedic paradigm of knowledge, which is quite different from what we learned until now. Until now, we dealt with Sankhyaik vision of Sankhya, of the mental structure of consciousness, where the mind dominates the faculties, the sense mind, basically. And that is the scientific paradigm, because in science, everything has to be supported by the evidence of the senses. And if senses do not provide the evidence, it's not real. This is science. Science and Sankhya are actually one and the same thing. Truly speaking, there is no difference between them. But there was before other paradigm which we looked into, and it was about the faculties of consciousness being free, where they are not surrendered or subjected or controlled by the mind, but mind is one of those faculties. So we have free faculties of sight, hearing, speech, and mind. Free, which is very unusual for us even to think, how a word can be free from the mind. Moreover, Sri Aurobindo goes even farther. He says that the word itself can create an idea. Itself can create a thought. The word, not the thought creates the word, but the word is creative of the thought. So the word is as if an energy of consciousness which pulls out of the mind thoughts, manifests formations, creates concepts, ideas. And this is something unusual for us. We are not thinking in those terms today, because our word is only a token of an idea. It is only expressing thought. It is not creating thoughts. Though it is not so, we will discover the potential of our faculties, and then we'll see that the word is creative of thought and feeling and experience. And this is a well-known thing to poets. Poets are creators of this world. They create experiences. I told you already, most probably, when I read this poetry, Sanskrit poetry, Ramayana or something, I get so much experience in my life, much more than I can get in my own life. You know, my own life doesn't give me that depth and that perception of the truth which I can get from reading Ramayana. But reading the word, well, maybe watching movie also, I do not know, you know better. You watched all those movies, but watching movies is not the same. When you read the word of Valmiki, you get this very strange, direct connection to your deeper self, to the deeper emotions such that you would not believe. I read, sit and cry and laugh like an idiot with myself, you know. It's reading Ramayana. It is so emotional. It is full of love and bhakti and unexpected turns, and so wonderful that my life looks miserable in comparison to this. I never had these emotions in my life. I never had this depth of love and devotion in my life. Never. I cannot imagine myself having it even. So, and that is a real experience given to me by the word. And that is kind of interesting, how the word can create this, yeah, in me. So I'm just kind of giving you an example of that this idea that the faculties are free and should not be only dependent on the sense mind is a very valid postulate. But here, what is interesting, we are moving even into a deeper, another type of paradigm. Somebody switched on. You want to say something? No?
I just wanted to say that can the word also come from inside? Instead of one reading the word as in Ramayana, can the word also come from inside and then move on to the mind?
Right. And that word of Valmiki is the word from inside. And that's why it is touching my inside. It looks like it is from outside. You know, it is now from outside, but the vibration is very inner. That's why it is touching my inner vibration. The word is a magic, you know. On this idea, the whole concept of Svadhyaya is built, and the whole Indian tradition is built only on the word, on the perception of the word, because the texts which we will be studying, the Vedic texts, Upanishads and so on, have to be read to oneself. When I read it to oneself, I have the action of these words which came from within on my inner self. So I will be having kind of opening in the inner sense. That's why text is so important. The whole Indian tradition is textual, basically. It's not about sacrifice, it's not about rituals, not about pouring milk on something, on the altar, or it's not about that. And Sayana himself confirms this. Sayana, who is the greatest ritualist, the greatest. There is no greater ritualist than Sayana in India. He confirms that bodily action is not necessary. It's by the word and the mind then the sacrifice is made. By the word speaking this text and the mind observing the meaning of it. Then between this heaven and earth, mind and word, something happens. And this something is experience. Why we are going to watch movies to the cinema? We are watching, and then we are full of tears, emotions come out, especially when Indian movies are going on in Russia or something. I can't forget how people come out from the movie. They're full of tears, everybody, because they're so emotional, you know. Why they cry? It's just the movie. Because the word and the mind created an experience. They lived through that experience. They got the whole rasa, all the emotions. It happened in them. And this is a very interesting thing to think psychologically, what is happening when we use the word and observe the mind. So the whole Indian tradition is based on this. And the sacrifice is also based on this. We see from Taittiriya Samhita, there is this particular phrase which is throughout the literature after Taittiriya Samhita. Ya evam Veda, the one who knows this as such, as it is declared in the text, he will get the fruit of the sacrifice. So to know the text in this way is the sacrifice. It's not doing something. It's not killing animals, you know. It's not about that at all. Not at all. It's about reading the text to oneself and understanding it with the mind. Every time you read the same text can be read every time, it gives different experience because it opens up in you different facets of yourself, and in different time in different context it has a different value for you. And every time you learn something from these texts, you most probably noticed it, yes, that when you read the same text which is charged with meaning, it always opens up something new. When we read Sri Aurobindo or we read Upanishads, all my life I read Upanishads. I learned them by heart, the major Upanishads, and in the morning I sit down and I read it to myself. And when I do this, something happens. Every time there is some opening. Every time there is some new understanding coming in. It is not that once I learned it and I know it. No, I don't know anything. It didn't happen yet. It's only a text. The text has to, with my mind, have to create in me an experience. And then I know something of it. So this is Svadhyaya. On this Svadhyaya, the whole Indian tradition is built. But now we are moving even into deeper, very different paradigm, which was preceding this, about which we are talking now, where the faculties are free. This is the Vedic paradigm. And in the Vedic paradigm, these faculties, which were seen in Vedanta as dependent on the individual consciousness, are seen as cosmic. They are not seen as individual anymore. They are universal. So we don't have individual faculties, so to say. We have only cosmic faculties or universal faculties. And this is something we are not ready yet for to have these faculties. But let us look into this paradigm. Yes?
What does that mean though?
Universal faculties?
Yeah, like what do you mean if we're not, like what do you even mean by universal faculties? It's as against individual faculties.
Universal faculties means that we have faculties which are applied to all creatures, to all beings, to all individuals, humans, animals, plants, and galaxies, and so on and so forth. The faculties which are pervading and present throughout. And these are known as gods. Yeah? The gods are representatives of these movements of consciousness, universal consciousness, which we may invite into our life and get engaged with. They are there in cosmos. They are present. They are waiting to be engaged with, to be invited. They can be utilized. They can be used for our transformation, for our growth of consciousness here, for our individual growth. This is the paradigm of the Vedic vision of consciousness. It is our consciousness. Universal consciousness is ours. It's not something separate from us. It is we on the universal level. But we, in our this narrow individual sense, we don't have access to it. So we are opening some kind of doors to our own universal consciousness, yes, by inviting them into ourselves. When we invite, it means that we are ready to be that, to be ourselves on the universal level. Yeah? We agree to widen the scope of our perception and consciousness.
Does that essentially mean that you'd be able to see the self in everything?
Right. And that is also the result. Actually, it's the outcome of this kind of vision. Yes. This is already a philosophical statement of the Upanishads when you see the self in yourself in everyone and everyone in yourself. Yes, it's when you reach to the cosmic or universal consciousness, you will see it in this way. This is the realization Sri Aurobindo had in Alipur jail. Yes, he saw Narayana everywhere, in every being. It was looking at him from creatures and human beings, and it was everywhere, surrounding him and protecting him and loving him. Even in being in jail, being sentenced in the court, he saw in the judge, Krishna smiling at him. And that was it. That was the end of the story. There was no more fear, no more despair. So, yes, This is the realization of cosmic consciousness. And these faculties of that cosmic consciousness are known as gods. Gods, literally deva, or devatas, devas in the Veda, is from root div, to shine. These are shining beings, or shining powers of consciousness. Yes? They are full of luminosity, of light. So we translate them as gods, but truly speaking, the word gods is not correct. Yeah? These are shining aspects of consciousness, which may change our perception, by the way, very dramatically. We will not be so much religious in that sense. Oops. I will have to put it again. Sorry. I made a mistake. I clicked on the wrong button. Right. So here in the first part, I give the chronology of Indian literature, very approximate, because there are many different views on it of different scholars. 6000 BC is the date given by Tilak when he examined Jyotisha, the constellations of Taittiriya Samhita, and he says that it is before 6000 BC the Vedas were written, at least, and not written, composed. They were never written, by the way. They were composed and memorized. And then we have the period, Brahmanic period of Brahmanas, quite late, maybe a few thousand years later. And Sri Aurobindo says that in the Brahmanic period, the Samhitas, the meaning of the Veda was already lost, and there was an attempt to recover the meaning. And it was done in the ritualistic sense. The rituals were created. That what we know today, the rituals are going on still in all the temples. These rituals were created in this period to explain the meaning of the Veda. And it was interesting how they did it, because they fixed it to the calendar, to the ritualistic calendar, and to the Jyotisha constellations. So behind every constellation there is some Vedic devata, godhead, who contributes through this particular constellation in this particular time. So it's very interesting how it was made, you know. So the whole Vedic cosmology vision was tied up to the ritual. And through rituals, these devatas were worshipped and invoked and so on. So the Brahmanic period was creating the ritual, and by that it actually covered the real meaning of the Veda. So to say, ritual became more important and than the meaning which was there behind it. Yes? Because some Vedic knowledge is not ritualistic, it's psychological. It's rather a psychology of universals. Yes, psychology of universal consciousness. But it has very little to do with practical rituals, you know, and oblations and so on and so forth, and mantras which were assigned to those oblations. And so in a way, Brahmanas helped to fix the text and to preserve the text over thousands of years, but at the same time it covered the meaning. That was the first layer of the meaning, so to say, between us and the meaning, the real meaning of the Veda. And then Aranyakas and Upanishads, especially Upanishads, tried to revive the meaning through coming to the very meaning of the Veda, not to the rituals. It was as if a new kind of revival, of the movement, but they couldn't do it in the same way as Vedas did. They saw the meaning in the Veda, but they created their own system, and they were interested even more to create their own philosophical systems than to interpret the Veda. The Veda for them was only a pretext, an excuse, or an indication where they have to move. And what is interesting, that in the Upanishadic period, the rishis of Upanishads considered Veda to be the supreme knowledge, the highest ever possible. Nothing can compete with it. But what is interesting in the interpretation of Upanishad from the later period, that we consider Upanishads to be the top of Indian philosophy, but the Vedas are something smaller. So we kind of don't trust Upanishadic rishis in their judgment. We consider Upanishads to be the highest creation of philosophy, but not what they say about the Veda. So the Veda for us is kind of smaller, or many people think that it is, pre-philosophical thinking, some kind of, yudu voodoo, and people don't know what they talk about, some kind of barbarisms with rituals and killing animals or something, which is taken from Brahmanic period. It is only with Sri Aurobindo, and of course, there is Dayananda Saraswati was first, and then Sri Aurobindo, who revived the psychological meaning of the Veda. Without Sri Aurobindo, truly speaking, we have nothing much to do with the Veda. There is no help from wherever. You will not find this help in the Indian literature. And then we have a shift to Sankhya in yoga, and it's another period altogether, the beginning of mental structure of consciousness. By the way, it happened on all Earth. You can see that from the period of 500 BC or 600 BC, all over the world, there was a shift towards this mental structure. In the Greek philosophy, we have this shift very clearly demarcated. We have this shift in, we have the beginning of Buddhism, Jainism, all these great religions, they come into being in this period. And they are all using mind as a mental structure of consciousness. They are built on this perception.
Vladimir, does that mean that there was basically a pretty like quick shift, evolutionary shift at that time across the world?
Right. 500 BC is a huge shift all over the world. It's mentioned many times in many different scholarly works on sociology, ethnography, and so on. There was as if a wave all over the world which changed our perception from pre-mental to mental structure. We can see it in paintings, in everything, in music, in mythology. And we have first sciences, shastras appear in this time. Shastric methods. Shastric methods will be scientific methods, and so on. Right. There is a very beautiful work which is called The Ever-Present Origin of Jean Gebser, You can look into it, and there he describes the beginning of mental structure of consciousness. In Europe, it comes with Greeks, but and it is clear that Greeks saw the outer beauty of the body. They started to make statues which were naturalistically proportional. Yes, it's no more that mythological view on the being. It's rather already a physical, materialistic view. And this materialistic view is the beginning of mental structure. It's a beautiful book, The Ever-Present Origin, and there you will see and understand what happened in this period of time. So we have also in India, we have The Ever-Present Origin. I can send you the exact. You can order it on Amazon, actually. It's from Ohio University in US. It's not expensive, actually. It's a very cheap book and a huge book. By the way, Jean Gebser was one of the interesting scholars or philosophers of his time. He was a friend of Picasso. Yeah, they were very close friends. And he was visiting him, and he was interested in fourth dimensions and so on. And when he finished his writing, in the 30s he was writing it, and in the 40s it was totally finished. But later he discovered Sri Aurobindo, later, after Sri Aurobindo has passed. And he discovered that Sri Aurobindo, especially his Life Divine and other writings, he said, and he wrote it in a letter, that he understood that all his thoughts and intuitions were directed by Sri Aurobindo's force. And this is kind of making him valuable for us, those who study Sri Aurobindo, that there is someone of this magnitude.
The force that Aurobindo is?
Yes,
Vladimir.
Sri Aurobindo's force was guiding his intuitions in his writings. He recognized the influence through reading Sri Aurobindo later. He didn't have to do it. He was very famous with his philosophy. Yeah, there are many, centers of Jean Gebser all over the world. They're studying him because he is a very famous philosopher in that sense, social philosopher. And
so Aurobindo individually, like in the force of Aurobindo individual, or the force that Aurobindo is?
No, mystically, not individually. He never met Sri Aurobindo.
Yeah, but it's really the soul, so to speak, of Aurobindo who was pushing him. It's not the force that Aurobindo describes.
No, it is influenced by Sri Aurobindo. He recognized his influence on himself, which is very unusual for the scientific mind, such as Gebser, because he would never speak such things. But then he came to, in 56, he came to ashram. He visited ashram. He lived in ashram for 2 years and a half. And he met the mother. And he said that the mother embodies this integral structure about which he is writing at the end of his book. According to his vision, all these structures which were there, pre-mental, mental, he has several of them: archaic, magic, mythical, mental. All of them are contradictory, so to say. But in the integral structure, they are becoming transparent and contribute to one knowledge. They are no more contradictory. It's a beautiful vision, very interesting view. So he says that the mother embodies that integral structure of the future.
So Vladimir, he was saying that the vital and the mental basically are not supporting each other, they're contradicting each other.
It's more complex than vital and mental. These are structures, these are the preferences, how our consciousness perceives the world, how we perceive the world. For example, in the mental structure, the mind dominates the senses. In the pre-mental, we have senses free, and there is a very different center of perception. It is rather the soul, the inner being. So to say, we have only two-dimensional view on reality, not three-dimensional. We have ourselves here and our origin of where we came from. And we know that the nature is not our origin. This is the mythical. But in the magic structure which preceded this, we were one with nature. There was no distinction between us and nature. This distinction comes later. You have to look into it. It's really very beautifully described and also supported by his evidence from the history, from his paintings and so on. He shows the differences in paintings and distinct features of paintings which are showing of the change of perception. For example, in the magic structure, where the oneness with nature is dominant, there is no myth, there is no word. The word comes only with the mythical structure. The importance of the word and its creative power comes in the mythical structure. But in the magic, there are all kind of taboos, all kind of, invocations, but they are like nature. They are not saying to us anything mythical, anything from our origin. They don't refer to the origin different from nature. They are all in nature. So they are kind of forces of nature, as shamanistic tradition is a magic tradition of the magic structure. We have someone, maybe I'm deviating from my purpose, but I'm just wanting you to be interested in this great work.
What does magic mean? Like, how could you...
Magic consciousness means, actually, according to Gebser, it's one-dimensional reality where you and nature are one. And he gives examples of the magic behavior of the magic structure of consciousness. For example, the Aboriginals from Australia, they before going hunting, they draw the antelope on the sand on the beach in the early morning. Then they take the ray from the sun as an arrow and put it into the neck of the picture. They dance around and then they go hunting. Then they go hunting, they kill antelope exactly into the same place in the neck as it is on the picture. They bring antelope to this picture, put it on the sand where it belongs, yes. They dance around again. For them, this all, sun, arrow, them, antelope, beach, sky, is one being. They are part of this being. They are not different. Nature is not different. Sun is not different. This is a very interesting perception, very different from mythical. In mythical, you start stories. At the beginning was the word. You start the story. You already shift away from nature. There is no antelope. There is no sun. There is no ray. There is no you. Nothing. There is something else altogether. There is the God at the beginning. And he said, let it be light. And he saw it was good. You don't see these things. There is no reality of it. It's all inside. This is the mythical, the shift.
So the shamanistic or magic consciousness has no concept of Purusha, no concept of consciousness. It's all Prakriti.
It is, for them, consciousness is Prakriti, yes. It's all Prakriti. There is no difference between consciousness and Purusha and Prakriti. This is one being, and they are part of this being. By the way, it's a great dimension of and very true consciousness magic. It's not, we should not judge it as not true. There is no division yet. The division comes later when we become conscious of ourselves and we consider ourselves coming from different origin, not from nature. So we see that, oh, we came here as souls from somewhere else. Our nature, our body even, is not we, who we are. We are somebody else. And this is the awakening of the mythical structure of the soul, individual soul. And then the word comes with it and confirms that, yes, we have different origin. We have to come back home. We have to leave all this nature. Nature is not for us. This is Advaitic vision. Yeah? Drop all this, mukti, moksha, go back. Realize back yourself, who you are, who you truly are. And then mental structure comes, which is very interesting, because what it does, it turns us upside down and tells us, look, there is an outer world which is real. It's not only you somewhere have to go back, but there is objectively real world outside. And you know, he gives a very beautiful example of Petrarca, who was one of the first, considered to be one of the first tourists in the world, because he was traveling for the sake of looking at things, which was very unusual. Nobody traveled that time to just, you know, look at things, to have an experience, to have a joy of kind of discovering the world. So the Petrarca could do it because he was rich. So and once Petrarca was climbing in the Alps to the top of the mountain, and when he was on the top of the mountain, he writes in his letter, he looked around and he saw the world, and he said, my God, the world is real. He could see the mountains up behind mountains. And then he was so taken by this, you know, that he wrote in the letter, so God, please forgive me that in the moment of this, seeing this beauty of the world, I forgot about you. And this is exactly the thing of the mental structure. It turns everything upside down. So you see the outer you become objective being. We are now objective beings. We look into the mirror all the time, how we look. You know? We all the time present, we are engaged in presentations of ourselves. We are no more ourselves. We are presenting the presentations non-stop. This is the mental structure. We see ourselves objectively, and we forget our subjective being. Moreover, we forget to that extent that we fight the subjective being. We say it's all nonsense. Scientific paradigm says it's all this religion is nonsense. It's a system of belief, you know. Don't go there. It's not true. So our objective viewing ourselves is so dominant, and it creates all the technologies. But look at how beautiful it is. Magic structure has reality of nature. Mental structure also has reality of nature in the same way as magic, but magic was internalized, whereas the mental structure is externalizing the same magic reality. Now, the whole magic world becomes objective to us. All our technologies, our supermarkets, our airplanes, computers, that we are talking now over the distance is the magic, objectivized. So we have two magic structures, the beginning and the end, and in between, as in hamburger, we have something which is the soul. So the soul is suppressed from both sides, from the magic and the mental structure. And Gebser says that the soul has to break through, and in the integral structure, it will come to the surface. Right. I have described the whole Gebser in 10 minutes. It's not very good, but you can read his book and you will enjoy these thoughts. It is very similar to what Sri Aurobindo speaks in the human cycle, in his stages of psychological development, starting from symbolic age and ending with subjective age. Yes, symbolic, conventional, individualistic, and subjective age. There will be ages in very similar manner as Gebser describes his structures of consciousness. So, in other words, why I'm speaking all this, because in Vedic tradition belongs to some beginnings or some archaic age. In archaic age, there is no division on the inner and outer. There is a total harmony, yes, but it is not yet manifested, and it has to be manifested in some way. And the manifestation is taking stages, so to say, magic, mythical, and then mental, and then finally integral. Integral concludes the archaic. It kind of manifests the archaic. So the Vedic paradigm, the Vedic knowledge is based on this integral structure, as archaic to us, but integral in a deepest sense. And that is also why Indian tradition is so integral. We can take Upanishads or Gita or Tantra. We will see that that integrality is already there, implied. So in the Vedic view, Vedic rishis were interested in the diversity rather than in oneness. They had oneness, but they were interested in all the details of diversity. In our case today, we are interested in oneness. We have all the diversity, but we are seeking for oneness. They were not seeking for oneness. They were seeking for the diversity. For them, that was the most interesting thing. Okay, I'm going ahead. The Vedic paradigm, the faculties of consciousness in the Veda are seen as projected from the Divine Mother, Aditi, infinite consciousness force. The supreme emanations of that consciousness force are called Adityas. Adityas are the sons of Aditi. Yes. Her faculties or her actions or her manifestations. There are 7 of them: Varuna, Mitra, Aryaman, Bhaga, Daksha, Amsha, and Surya. They are all mentioned in the Veda. And I am showing them here in this scheme. So she is manifested through them. Varuna, Mitra, Aryaman, Bhaga, first 4, and then 3 next, Daksha, Amsha, and Surya. First 4 emanations Sri Aurobindo calls the guardians of light. It's kind of interesting. Here is his, no, not here, it was before, I think. Well, I started with Adityas immediately, but there are many different classes of gods. Adityas, Vishvadevas, Vasus, Maruts, Rudras, and so on. And all of them have specific faculties, specific functions in the cosmos, and manifest certain forces, you know, create the world in which we live. So we are dealing now with the first group of Aditya Gana. I will have to tell you the story of the 8th son of Martanda. Yes, here Sri Aurobindo calls these, I want to quote this, Aditi is the infinite light of which the divine world is a formation. And the gods, children of the infinite light, born of her in the rhythm is the dynamic truth, manifested in that active truth of her movement, guarded against chaos and ignorance. This is an important thing to say, that the manifestations of Aditi, of the infinite light of consciousness, is in the rhythm, in the dynamic truth, in our manifestation, guards us from chaos and inconscient. The chaos and inconscient is present. It's infinite also. The infinite night, the lower ocean of the inconscient is infinite. And it could gobble us up, our consciousness, if these guardians would not be there. You see, we are coming to the Vedic perception, which is kind of different from what we saw up to now. We never dealt with these issues of the universal inconscient or superconscient. We never spoke in this way. We spoke in terms of faculties, of hearing, seeing, individually kind of recognized. But here, there is some shift towards some greater view on reality. So these Adityas, these four, are the guardians, Varuna, Mitra, Aryaman, Bhaga. And the three of them are of this, so these first four are transcendental godheads, and the three are supramental godheads, Daksha, Amsha, and Surya. So 7 of them, according to the story, Aditi brought to birth the 8th one, Vivasvan. And the 8th son was born without limbs and ugly, and so to say, he is called also Martanda, the dead embryo, as if it was some kind of, miscarriage or something. So she dropped him off, and she saw how ugly he was, and she left him. She left him with her 7 sons. She didn't want to recognize him as her own son. He was very different. So when Vivasvat, and Vivasvat is the Lord of the Sun, notice, is the creator of this universe, he kind of grew up and became who he was. He didn't know his origin. He didn't know his mother, didn't know his father, so to say. He thought he was alone. He was a lone creator of this universe. And this is kind of interesting. It's very similar to Lucifer in the Western tradition, who didn't know his father and mother. And also Lucifer is also full of light. Vivasvat is also shining with light. Vivasvat, the one who has extensive light. So Vivasvat, as the 8th son, so to say, embodies in himself all the 7 preceding sons in the hierarchy. So to say, every one of them implies the previous one, so to say, starting from Varuna and ending with Vivasvat. Vivasvat embodies in himself all 7 sons of Aditi. But in the embodied state, in this world, Vivasvat is the light which fell or entered this world, which was the light hidden within this world. In the Veda, there are interesting indications. It is said that Agni is arising from Vivasvat. How can Agni rise from Vivasvat? That means that Vivasvan is below. It is the light which supports the whole manifestation of nature. It is that power of the involved sun. And that's why in the myth, he is described as ugly and born not beautiful, without limbs and so on. Because the nature of that time was not evolved yet, not developed. So it's an involved light. So the four transcendental godheads, Varuna, according to Sri Aurobindo, represents the vastness of infinite being, Sat. Mitra represents the luminosity and harmony of consciousness, Chit. Aryaman, the power of the divine tapas, the divine energy, force. Bhaga, the bliss of the divine fulfillment, Ananda. He says somewhere, all these, we can read his quotations, beautiful. The divine is existence, all-embracing, infinite and pure. Varuna brings to us the infinite oceanic space of the divine soul and its ethereal, elemental purity. The divine is boundless consciousness, perfect in knowledge, pure and therefore luminously right in its discernment of things, perfectly harmonious, and happy in its concordance of their law and nature. Mitra brings us this light and harmony, this right distinction and relation and friendly concord. The happy laws of the liberated soul concordant with itself and the truth, and all its rich thought, shining actions, and thousandfold enjoyment. The divine is, in its own being, pure and perfect power, and in us the eternal upward tendency in things to their source and truth. Aryaman brings to us this mighty strength and perfectly guided happy inner upsurging. The divine is the pure and faultless, the all-embracing, the untroubled ecstasy that enjoys its own infinite being and enjoys equally all that is created within itself. Bhaga differs from Mitra in that sense because Mitra is also the enjoyment, but the enjoyment of the being, whereas Bhaga is the enjoyment of all created things. Yes, also not only of the being pure and infinite, but also of the things which were created within creation. So this quarterly is practically the later essential trinity of Satchitananda: existence, consciousness, bliss, and self-awareness and self-force, Chit and Tapas, for double terms of consciousness. But it is here translated into its cosmic terms and equivalents. So basically, Satchit Ananda of the later time is this Satchit Tapas Ananda. Yes, that's what Sri Aurobindo says about these four guardians of light: Varuna, Mitra, Aryaman, Bhaga, as Satchit Tapas Ananda. And the rest three represent the triple status of the supermind. And Sri Aurobindo describes it very beautifully, the triple status, that we have three different levels of the supermind. And here is the quotation: the triple status of the supermind. Sri Aurobindo writes about these three levels. The first founds the inalienable unity of things. The second modifies that unity so as to support the manifestation of the many in one and one in many. The third further modifies it so as to support the evolution of the diversified individuality, which, by the action of ignorance, becomes in us, at a lower level, the illusion of the separate ego. So here we can see this gradation from unity to many in one and one in many, and many. So to say unity, diversifying unity and diversity. Or in terms of Vedic godheads, Daksha represents the power of thought, all discerning and all distributing power of supramental consciousness. Amsha represents the diversity of oneness, supported by that unifying power of Daksha. And Surya or Savitar represents all the seven Adityas and projects them into a lower creation. His rays represent the diversity in the domain of Svar. And this is important because the Surya at the end is the manifesting deity of all these varieties of things, of all the diversities. The rays are the symbols of this diversifying power of Surya. So altogether, these seven sons, Varuna Sat, Mitra Chit, Aryaman Tapas, Bhaga Ananda, Daksha supramental knowledge force, Amsha supramental many in one and one in many, and Surya as supramental manifestation. What is interesting about Amsha is actually the part, yes, the partial being, the spark of our own individuality, yes, our own soul. So to say part implies both, that it is part of something bigger and that it is by itself. Yes, in the very meaning of the word part, Amsha, there is the oneness and the separateness. So if we look at this scheme now differently, we will see that Aditi with her seven sons kind of created the projection, and this projection is in the same deities kind of manifested in the world or fallen into their opposites, as we spoke in our first meetings. And so Varuna, which is Sat, becomes the matter here. Yes, Mitra and Aryaman become our consciousness here, our life. Bhaga becomes our manifestation of our soul here, of our psychic being, of our delight. And these triple supermind becomes our triple mind here, with the three levels of the mind. It's kind of interesting that Aditi and Diti are mentioned in the Veda all the time as two sisters. One is unifying consciousness and other is diversifying consciousness. Diti is the consciousness of the division, whereas Aditi is about not dividing. There are many more things can be said, but I'm just giving you a gist of this. I will not go into every detail. So here we come to the proper Vedic paradigm. If you have something to say or to ask, you can always stop me. Don't hesitate. If something is not clear, I don't want it also to go over your head like something which, okay, we do not know this, and then you better stop me and clarify, then I will be knowing where I am.
Will we go back to the eighth one again? Vivasvat, or?
Vivasvat, yes.
He was the one who created the world?
Right.
Or was it Surya? Because you just said that Surya.
Surya is the uninvolved divinity, whereas Vivasvat is Surya which is involved. By the way, yeah, this is something difficult to understand, that we have two Suryas, kind of, yes. One is uninvolved, another is involved. As if the two suns.
I'm not sure I understand.
Right. Well, it is spoken like this. Yeah. Sri Aurobindo has a very beautiful work which is called Involved and Evolving Godhead. Involved and evolving Godhead. So to say, this is the Surya. Yes, the supermind is involved. It is within this creation. Yeah? It looks like within this creation from our point of view. But from the supramental, from the Surya's point of view, this creation is within it. In other words, we have only one sun, one Surya. But from one point of view, it is involved. And from another point of view, it is the world which is involved in the Surya. There are two different views on this creation. By the way, this second view that the world is within the sun is clarified in the Gita by Krishna when he speaks about that he supports, he is in this world, and then he says, no, not even I am in this world, but the world is in me. And this is something which is a different view of uninvolved Godhead. When you look at the world, you will see that the world is a part of this Godhead. It is within him. But when you are in the world, you see that the divine is involved, rather. That you are the bigger part, and there is some smaller part within is the divine. Yeah? Which has to come out. So there are two different views of consciousness on the Godhead, involved and uninvolved. So this is the Vivasvat, representing Surya as involved Godhead and manifesting the whole world through that involution. We had this first presentation, and I was telling you about it, that it is the most important one, the first one which I was making. You remember about the falling of the beings, of the emanations, and then the descent of the divine into that fallen state. So this is the Vivasvat, yeah, the descent of the light into the fallen state. That's why outwardly it looked ugly, but inwardly it was the same light of Aditi. We are using symbolic language here to explain things which are impossible to explain. Anyhow, this will make you think for the rest of your life, especially this Vivasvat thing. I am always thinking about this. And why he's called Martanda also. The Martanda kind of dead embryo. Yes, he was born as the very death is the nature of its birth. Yes, so to say, he has to die in order to be born, and this is the way how this world is being manifested, through death, through constant transformation. It is not immortal, it's mortal. Anyhow, I do not know whether it answers your, but it kind of directs you in the right direction. So you look at this scheme I put instead of Surya in the projection Vivasvat here, because it's involved. These all Godheads are involved now. So the Satchitananda is projected, according to Sri Aurobindo, into the matter, vital, and mind. so to say, through these three Godheads of the supermind, which are also reflected in the three Svar worlds. And now I want to show you the whole picture, and it's kind of interesting. Surya Savitri, the Lord of creation. The rays of the sun thus build up the luminous plains called in the Vedas Svar. It has three luminous realms called Trirochanas. The Svar has three luminous realms, Trirochana, and which thus project the higher three realms of the cosmic mind, called Tisrodhyavah, three heavens, and which is sustaining the three spaces of the vital realm, called in the Rig Veda Trini Rajansi. Trini Rajansi, these are three luminous spaces. So look at this, three Rochanas, three luminous realms produce three heavens, or three luminous heavens, because Dyavah is also from Div, to shine. Three luminous heavens, which produce three luminous spaces. All are luminous. All are shining. And these three luminous spaces of the vital realm produce three earths, three foundations, three physical worlds. Now, you see 3 times 3, yeah? 3 in 3. So here is the scheme, kind of interesting. I will increase it that you see better. And in the scheme you can see that what are these three? Three heavens here in the world are mental mind, vital mind, and physical mind. There are three minds. There are three vital worlds: mental, vital, 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 physical, vital. And there are three physical beings: mental, physical, vital, physical, physical, physical. All these 9 worlds, 3 times 3, as you see them here on the left, are produced from Svar world of these 3 luminous realms of Trirochanas. We will speak about them in detail. I am not writing them here down because I will have next slide. Which are these Trirochanas is a projection of the triple supermind, where there are 3 levels of the supermind: unity, diversifying unity into many, and many. This kind of law of the supermind, which you see to the right, produced the 3 realms, luminous realms of Svar. The Svar is the world of the ray of the sun, which result in these triple worlds, 3 times 3, 9 worlds of our physical, vital, and mental existence, but interwoven, interconnected in such a way that every physical has mental presence, vital presence in it. Any vital and mental has physical presence in it. So it is not totally possible to separate these worlds. They're interwoven into one tapestry of the world. Do you see this? So in order to have physical world, we need vital and mental. But in order to have vital, we need physical and mental. But in order to have mental, we need physical and vital. So mental does not exist by itself, as if. it needs vital and physical to exist. So these higher realms, in Sri Aurobindo's terms, of Trirochanas, he calls them supramental overmind, and intuitive mind. It is these realms here in Svar, which I didn't write down. Now I'm kind of explaining them in Sri Aurobindo's terms. So the Svar world, the world of Svar, of the overmind, has three levels. Supramental overmind is the highest. It is the first outbursting of light, leaving the supermind, so to say, into the space of darkness. It's first coming out of the ray, where it is still connected to the supermind. Then it is in itself, in its own realm of a mental consciousness. And then it is diversifying as intuitive mind, of which Indra is a representative, and sending the lightning of this intuition down into our lower hemisphere. And we receive this intuition here as his lightning. And then three heavens of our mentality. It is illumined mind in terms of Sri Aurobindo, higher mind, and proper mind. And then three lower realms of vital and physical. These are mental, vital, vital, physical, vital, mental, physical, vital, physical, and physical, physical. So body in the Veda, the physical body, is seen as supramental creation. The triple conception of the creator within his own consciousness creates a supermind. This is the quote from, it's nearly the quote from the Veda, as it is explained that how the supramental consciousness comes into being. It's a triple conception by the creator. The very physical consciousness is a result of this conception and a part of its realization. The physical and mental consciousness are seen in the Veda as two luminous firmaments, Rodasi, supporting the growing soul in the creation. Rodasi means luminous, shining foundations, beings. Now I'm coming back to this scheme to show you the beauty of it and to explain a little more before we conclude today. These 9 realms which you see here, starting from mental mind and finishing with physical. Physical are the 9 levels of consciousness in our being. In the Vedas, they are called Navagva rishis. There were rishis who realized all 9 realms in themselves. Navagva means the rishis of 9 rays. The rays which were 9, and these are the 9 rays, or the 9 luminous realizations of consciousness, from the physical to the mental. But these 9 Navagva rishis couldn't realize the truth. They needed the help. You see, they are kind of cut off from the supermind. There is a gap. Svar world is not reaching out to them. So they needed a connection with the Svar world. So to them, there is Ayasya Rishi comes, who becomes the 10th one, who brings the influence of Indra, and they become Dashagva Rishis. They become Rishis of 10 rays. And then they realize the truth. It's kind of interesting that Navagva Rishis become Dashagva Rishis. They kind of increase the scope of their consciousness. So they kind of break through from their illumined mind to the intuitive mind. And once they break through to the Svar world, there is a connection to the supermind.
Vladimir, is there like a particular god that help them to do that?
Indra, yes.
Indra.
Indra is making that connection. He breaks the roof from the top with his lightning and connects them to the higher realms. This is the vision of what Rig Veda has on our consciousness. By the way, it's also very interesting to see. You can see that there are 9 our worlds to the mind, to the top of the mind, to the roof of our mind, illumined mind. And there is also 3 rochanas, 3 more realms before the supermind. So altogether we have 12 levels. Interesting, the number 12. And Mother says, somewhere describing our being, she speaks about 12 exteriorizations before we can come to the supermind. She was describing this experience with Amla with Alma in Alma in Algeria, her friend, who was the wife of Theon. And she could do it. She could go from body to body, exteriorize 12 times in reaching the highest supermind. She speaks about 12 chakras in our body. She says there are not 7 as usually it is understood, but 12. And she says that below Kundalini Shakti, there are 2 more chakras, and there are 3 above our Sahasrara. And look at this scheme, and you will understand immediately that below is, in the knees, there is vital physical, and below our feet, there is physical. But the mental physical is our Kundalini, which rises to our physical vital is Svadhisthana, vital is Manipura, mental vital is Anahata, physical mind is Vishuddha, vital mind is the third eye, the dynamic mind, and mental mind is Sahasrara. And then there is above 3 chakras of the Svar world, intuitive mind, overmind, and supramental overmind, the great chakras, to which we hardly have ever access. So basically the whole structure, of the human being, or any being in this world, is of these 12 realms of consciousness before the supermind. This is the Vedic vision of our consciousness and being. There is much for you to think about it here. What is this physical mind? What is vital mind? Yeah, it's mind which is mind of the whole. It's the life of the mind, vital mind. It's a universal, a huge realm. It is that what Sri Aurobindo calls a higher mind. Yeah? A physical mind is the mind which is concerned with physical manifestation of cosmos. It is the mind which is in the physical manifestation. And mental mind is something much greater. It's this illumined mind which knows everything in this cosmos. And so on. And if you think about mental physical, what it means is these, the mind of the cells, that describes very beautifully. There is the mind in the cells. It is that mental physical. Vital physical and physical, very difficult to describe what it could mean. I do not know what physical is as such, where there is kind of total loss of the mind and vital. It's the physical element itself. So there is much to think, but the scheme is beautiful and very thought-provoking and very meaningful in terms of reading the Rig Veda and understanding what is being spoken in the Rig Veda. All right, I will stop here for today. I already said too many things in one session. Thank you for coming back. So next time I will come back online 10 o'clock my time, and not 11. So we will be on time. Right.
Is there a writing? Yeah,
Right.
go for it.
Right, there is a writing about this, everything with all the quotations from Sri Aurobindo. I have my article written, by the way, in this Foundations of Indian Psychology. You will find one of the first articles are written exactly on this Vedic paradigm. You will find all the quotes there. You just ask Matthias.
On the IPI website.
On the IPI website, I'm not sure. Okay, I have it in my format printed somewhere. I can send you separately if you don't want to find the book, this Foundations of Indian Psychology. Matthias would give you. He has many copies, by the way, to read if you want to read from the book. Otherwise, I will send you my own printout from that article from the book. The Xerox, the scanning. All right. So thank you for coming back again, and we will meet next time. Yes.
Thank you.
Uh,
Interesting.